Thank you, Anuradha. You know, there's an author who recently wrote a book saying India grows at night. Uh, I don't know how many people sort of think that India does grow at night. My experience is that it grows only when government sort of is awake. So before I start this session, I mean, it would be interesting to know from you people who are in the nuts and bolts gear shifts of the economy as to any particular concerns or issues that you guys are flagging. And so then I can include all those points in my conversation. I don't want this to be a unidimensional. You noticed I stepped off the stand so that it doesn't come across like a speech in that sense. But I'm just going to go around the table asking people if any particular thoughts that occur to you, anything that you need looked at or answered. So can I start here? Anything you gentlemen think that it's uppermost on your PSU and PS, GST, insurance, whatever. What's the thing that you guys have on top of your mind, recall, in terms of concern?
How the economy is going to behave, because of course we have been through a tough time on the economic front for quite some time now. So with the government, which looks to be quite decisive, and with the complete majority in place, able to take decisions. So how we look at economy behaving and growing in future, that is one concern. I think all of us share that concern, that how the economy growth is going to be in the coming year or two, so that we can look at our business.
So you're saying government that appears to be decisive, how does it imply?
Yeah, how does this impact the economy as such, and the decisions, and for example, how bold decisions do you expect it to take, maybe in terms of increasing FDIs and other things which are important for the growth of the economy, and other fronts for which contribute.
Anything else? Can we? Yeah?
First, we have to set the house in order. PM has been traveling a lot. He is being referred as NRI PM. Okay. Black money mat lao, PM ko wapis to bula lo. So there are a couple of stuff which first we have to fix. I think those are the priorities in terms of secularism and the other stuff, which actually put you on a backtrack and a back burner while you are going on a development course. So I think that is, to my mind, is important. He need to fix up some time for the internal housekeeping.
Okay, thanks. Anybody here?
Just to add to what was mentioned, the sales pitch has been really strong for last 6-8 months now. Make in India, garnering the interest, making people think towards India again. What will lie key is the execution of all this.
Okay.
What would be holding the RBI governor to reduce the interest rates? And if he decides to do that in the near future, what would be the impact on economy that you foresee?
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with my friend there. Execution is the key. What we are experiencing, at least, is that the middle level and middle level bureaucracy is still not in sync with the government. While the government may make all right noises, but the bureaucracy is completely, still lying very, very low. They are kind of,
Would you like to sort of? I'm not asking you to name individuals or anything. I'm just saying department. Which sector do you think that it's worse off?
We come from the telecom sector, so at least in the telecom we are, seeing this on day in and day out.
Okay.
Are we giving the right message to the global investors? Just for example, the recent way the entire Uber case was taken care of. a lot of FDI money gone in and they banned Uber, they banned Ola, or a lot of other, the entire the cab services sector was under scanner. And the tax stability, are we giving the right message? In one of the speeches, the Modi government said that there will be no retrospective taxes, but the way the finance minister taxed the mutual fund investment, it returns taxability.
Okay.
With what we are seeing in the Rajya Sabha these days,
Yeah.
what we are seeing in the Rajya Sabha, what's happening now, do you think the government is still confident that they'll be able to push majority of the reforms in the next few months, 6 months, 3 months time frame, or do you think that they will probably take time to consolidate their position in Rajya Sabha and then start, pushing through all the big bang reforms?
So your query
So
is
what's the sense there?
is Rajya Sabha lack of
Playing in
majority
their mind,
and majority?
is it really playing? And two is, I think, many of these measures recently is more looking like a repackaging of some old measures or a slightly polished, so to say, initiatives. Do you think the government really has got something in terms of thought towards various big reforms or to take the economy in a higher growth path?
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
When we are talking about the Make in India, it's a very big, statement we launch, and there are a lot of expectations now, because this is what is going to accelerate the, jobs in the economy and put the economy on a fast track mode. So, if we take that as a key objective for next, say, maybe 3 years down the line, then what should be our approach? How the monetary policy should be framed, and how the finance minister should address the industry related issues as well as the other social political issues. So maybe you can throw some light on that.
Anybody else?
The PM has been talking of Make in India and Make for India concepts. So one way of looking at it, like the government wants to promote a lot of FDIs and the companies to come into invest into India. So the point is that whether the government is looking for providing a stable tax regime, and is it only like in a budget speech, or is it will it be implemented down the line, actual at the bureaucrats level? So that is what we are looking for.
Okay.
I have a more general concern. Modi and the BJP, the government, they came into power on the whole development plank. And now we suddenly find that Mr. Modi is not able to control a section of at least those RSS religious fanatics. So my concern is whether his whole development agenda will get if not hijacked, will at least get sidetracked, leading to an adverse impact on the economy, the FDI and the whole thing. He doesn't seem to be able to control a particular section,
I should send you my last column. Okay, anybody?
I'm of the opinion they're still trying to manage the media and trying to manage the perception about the government with the people. I think it's the time they come out with their policy for the business or the trade in the country and streamline certain things. They make declarations about FDI. I don't see an update happening anywhere. We are in the air. Do we get money? Do we don't get money? If we get money, do we need to go for a 5 PB approval? I think the inconsistency continues. Thank you.
Yeah, my question is around central government versus the state governments. Even if the central government executes most of what they want to do, if the state governments don't catch up or cooperate, will there be an impact on the ground?
Can you say that again? I missed this last part of it.
My question is, even if a lot of changes are made at the center, if the state governments are not capable of executing these schemes, will that make a difference on the ground or not? Can Modi alone win this, or does he need the states to rally behind him?
Okay, so are they on the same page, for example, on GST? So,
yep, like last one, probably,
yeah,
if you permit me.
Yeah.
It's Manoj this side. My question is like very simple in a way that will the things change the way any government thing operate? Like everything, whenever it is connected with the government, it's very complicated. It's not straightforward. It's bureaucratic. Things doesn't move straight way. We know the corruption part. So will things change that way? Will the way government function at lower level or higher level, will it change?
Okay, so I'll start from I'll give you an overview of what I think is happening. Those are very good questions and gives me a sense of the concern that I share with a lot of you people. And the lady there asked about the issue about the development agenda being hijacked. So my last column was titled, "How about a Ghar Wapsi to the Modi model?" So some grudging acceptance, a lot of people wrote to me, and of course the trolls on Twitter and online, they have something called the Hindu Defense League, which went after me and told me how missionaries collect funds and churches and mosques collect funds and stuff like that. So there is going to be that part of the society, in this society, you cannot run away from that. So let me start with my overview. Everything, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore had once said that everything that you say about India, the opposite is equally true. And it's fascinating, 30 years of journalism, I find that bell ringing every time I see something. We have the largest number of illiterate people, the largest number of graduates. We send Mars mission, but we can't fix ordinary problems. So, everything pans out to that little caveat. My sense is that economy and politics both function on the matrix of expectations. So Narendra Modi, when he campaigned, he used the matrix of expectations to build opinion around a decisive, operational, functional government as against the bipolar disorder that we suffered for 10 years. The last 10 years really was a wasted decade, in the sense that in 2004, when the UPA came to power, they inherited a low-cost, high-growth economy. By the time they left, India was a high-cost, low-growth economy. And the reason for that is simple, is that they could have used the opportunity, the global growth, the 9% growth 3 years in a row when Chidambaram was finance minister. In 2007, we went and projected ourselves at Davos as the fastest growing free market democracy. Those were all great opportunities to focus on the politics of economics. Unfortunately, political parties tend to focus on the business of politics first. And that's the sense that you get when you look at the picture now. What's the picture now? 6 months into this government, we know that the 4.1 fiscal deficit will not be met, the target. It will be short by somewhere between 1 lakh and 1,25,000 crores. So we are exactly where we were somewhere in September 2012, 2013, where the government had to cut down on expenditure. The good news is that the oil prices are down, at least till March. I think they will be somewhere in the 60s. So some amount of current account deficit has come down, but gold imports have gone up. So that offsets whatever advantage you got there. The finance minister's budget in July said that revenue growth will be about 19%. It's somewhere near 8%. In net of the state share, it's less than 4%. They were supposed to collect 9,80,000 crores. They might just about collect 8,80,000 or 8,90,000 crores. So they will cut expenditure. Now obviously salaries, pensions, wages will not be cut. It will be the big tech projects which will get hurt, or social spending which will get hurt. Either the enablers of the economy or the actual investment itself. So when this government was elected, all of us in this room and elsewhere in this country, and most people who voted for the BJP, I say most people and not all of them, because some people had some other agenda also. Most people who voted for the BJP expected portability of investment, of growth, of savings, of decisions. And now we hear about faith portability. We expected cash benefit transfer, direct benefit transfer, so there is some kind of other cash benefit transfers being made. So there is a contest just now between those who think they were elected to power and the man who was actually elected to power. And I think one of the reasons that this has happened is because the agenda that was set for the first 6 months included quite a few external engagements, some of which were unavoidable. And somehow a lot of them took a lot of time. So let's look at this phase as the branding process. Make in India. I'll come to this whole debate about make in India, make for India and all. I mean, so bottom line there I wanted to place on the table just now is that economics is not made in India, it's accepted worldwide theory and it functions on a certain given necessary and sufficient conditions. So the first thing that we should expect in this year, I think the government has come out with its mid-year review and they have said that economic GDP growth would be somewhere around 5.5%. It might be a little lower, but the year ahead I think would be better because the government should start moving on some of the things. Now the gentleman last there, he asked the last question, I think it was about how the way the government functions. I think the primary focus till now that Narendra Modi and his ministers have been attending to is to how to see the low-hanging fruits, the processes that can be set right. So you have self-attestation, you have one form instead of 15, not big stuff. I mean, these are stuff that you expect any government to do. What kind of makes this a little irritating is that when you see other big stuff not being attended to and this getting optics and publicity, one of the newspapers today has a story saying how they've put all files on the net and they have a LAN system or a WAN system where files will be noticed. I mean, you're wondering, I mean, we did this 20 years back. I mean, most companies do internal reviews, everything is online. I remember when we were in India today, when the boss was traveling, we would send him articles and covers on a website that had a signature code sign like a beta site and he could see stuff there and send back. So files are put up like that. So, but it's still happening and you can't deny that any small movement is good movement. So there are two pictures in the economy. One, there's a lot of motion. There's talk about setting the energy security right. There's talk about fixing the investment climate right. So there's a lot of motion and not enough movement. So what does the government lack in that sense is capacity to take the ideas that Narendra Modi has brought to the table forward. And there are some glaring failures and then some very interesting stories of movement forward. For instance, I would have expected that the government would attend to the problem of energy, those 25,000 odd megawatts of stranded projects, because they impact banks, they impact energy, they impact consumption, investment, the whole lot of things. But 6 months, I don't think there's much movement there. I granted that Manmohan Singh's government couldn't settle it since January 2012, but this was supposed to be a decisive government. So the point is that the problems that are vested in the economy are hugely complex. Now, why can't they, for instance, settle this issue about the power projects which are not getting fuel linkage? because new fuel linkage means higher tariff. Higher tariff means state electricity boards have to pay, and the state electricity boards are bankrupt. Now this government has come with a mindset that privatization is a bad word. So people like me and others have suggested that, okay, so you don't subscribe to the idea of privatization, but you should disinvest in the idea of ownership. So why not corporatize distribution and transmission, make them into 4 parcels in 4 zones, or one big company like Power Grid Corporation, take it away from the political system. There is also a tendency to achieve, and this is the big thing, that they want to achieve a milestone. So the goods and services tax, which was supposed to be bringing a one unified market, one tax, and all of you suffer this problem of multiple tax pyramids and pyramid effect, cascading taxes. Now this bill has been pending in India since 2002. The idea, the committee, the empowered group of, there have been 3 different heads of the empowered group of state finance ministers. Now we are told that it will be introduced in Parliament on Monday. Is this the same animal that we were all sort of breeding and rearing and nurturing for 10 years? I don't think so, because the state governments, again, they are not, as one of the gentlemen asked, are they on the same page? They are not on the same page, because they want the ability to create rent and to fund rent. So they have asked for petroleum, tobacco, alcohol to be kept out. So the thesis in this government is that the best option cannot become the enemy of the good. The best cannot become the enemy of the good. So let's get this done and then we'll take them in later. I'm a bit of a purist, so I think that if you get the design flawed first, there's a lot of, it takes years and years to fix it. In a state like Maharashtra, where the BJP just won an election, the state went up and said, we don't accept this GST unless you allow us to levy entry tax and you pay us 10 years compensation for any losses that we make. The previous Maharashtra government hadn't asked any of this. So there are changing pictures, everybody has come with a mandate, so the complexities are huge. So everybody here, I might spill that. So the 4 things that need to be done is first getting rid of the archaic laws that make doing business difficult, the permits, the clearances and all that. A large part of it is with the state government, some part of it is with the central government. So Modi's evangelism has to carry through in the states. The second is the cost of capital. Now the cost of capital cannot be fixed overnight. I think somebody here asked when Raghuram Rajan might be able to bring down the interest rates. So currently we are having a low interest rate optics, but that is largely base effect, and we are in a what I call a sweet spot. Commodity markets are down, global food prices are down, fuel prices are down. This is the time to get things done and move forward. So if we get the system of direct benefit transfers or stuff in February, some movement towards that, it might help manage inflation better, because the subsidy cost will come down, deficit will come down, government borrowings will come down. I don't know how many of you know this, but the government of India borrows something like 1600 crores every day. That's about 80 crores an hour. And that's a lot of money to borrow and keep the private sector out. So, the third question is about land acquisition. So we have been wrestling this land acquisition problem about making land available for close to 10 years now. Brazil did this in 1988, China did it in 1989. They found ways to do it, and India has got to find a way to do it. So we landed up with a land acquisition bill, which this government says is a terrible act, but they didn't stop it when they were in opposition. They voted with it. We have got a Narega which is creating a new wage, minimum wage level, which is affecting both labor, supply of labor in agriculture and industry. Again, which is a coalition of the opposition and the ruling parties which brought this in. These have to be fixed, and it's going to be a long haul on this. And these costs will continue with the current thing. There is some movement in environment clearances. They have some decisive steps have been taken. But what does the sum total picture look like? We still have, the finance minister has written letters to bank chairmen saying that there are issues with projects which are stalled where banks have already lent money. That's 18 lakh crore worth of projects, investments. And these things take time to, so A, there is a capacity problem, and B, there is an distractive environment. As I said earlier, when you get a huge wave, flotsam, jetsam floats to the top, so there's a lot of flotsam floating around, and I'm told that the Prime Minister has put his foot down and has read the riot act to his MPs. It will have some impact, but there will be much more talking and action needed for the sense of order that people expect that to come. And the funny thing is that when this government came to power, India had migrated from no government to no opposition. In the last 1 month, they have invented an opposition by doing all the stuff that was not on the horizon. There is a hurdle facing the government in terms of legislation because of lack of majority in the Rajya Sabha. Is that an insurmountable problem? I don't think so. But you have to manage the environment. Just like when we step out in the cold, we'll wear our mufflers and jackets and stuff. You have to manage the opposition. The insurance bill, for instance, was agreed upon. It could have gone through. But then you created an Agra and an Aligarh and a Christmas order. These are completely unnecessary distractions. Would governance have been worse off if it was not on December 25th? What message are you sending? Then I want to come back to the messaging part of the thing. Make in India. It's a great message that Indians should invest in India, Indian companies should invest in India. Governor Raghuram Rajan has come up with his own little thesis saying make for India. They mean the same thing. Whether you make in India, make for India, what you're talking about is stuff that we import, where there's a market for in the world, we should make those things and we should get those people to invest in India. So one big push that we got for Make in India is FDI in defense. Huge step. Somebody like me and others who have been chasing this for nearly 15 years, we think it's a huge achievement for a government to do in the first 3 months. But would that be enough? Now those guys who are coming in are faced with exactly the things that others have been facing over the last few years, which is land, environment clearance, cost of capital. Because remember, this is a 49-51 JV, so the Indian guy has to fork out a lot more money. So where is he going to get capital? So when you say make in India or make for India, I'm using this Samsung phone. This is not an endorsement, I'm just saying Samsung phone. So can we make in India? Of course you can make in India. But what would that require? You would require scale, investment in technology, finding the land, environment clearance, labor laws, cost of capital. Much of it is made in China because cost of capital is less than 3%. Foxconn makes Apple phones in China and they can employ 1.5 million people at one site because that the government there makes it happen. I don't know any establishment in India which can match that kind of scale. So when you don't have scale, when you don't have technology, when you can't push for capital cost, so the idea of make in India is still an idea, it has to be progressed, taken further, and let's face it, it's only been 6 months. I mean, it's going to take a long time to fix problems. So what's hurting is that non-stop sloganeering about this. That, we're doing this, constant pictures, constant messaging, and last government didn't do this, last government didn't do that. And then you notice two of the biggest supporters of the government, one has gone and invested in Australia and one is going and investing in Mexico. 6 public sector units, all involved in energy, are investing in Mozambique, in Vietnam, in Canada and stuff. So why aren't they investing in India? Because Coal India chairman will tell you that 100 of his clearances are pending in the environment ministry. So yes, this is going to be a decisive government. At least they know what to do, what they want to do. They know what they want to do, but are struggling on how to do it. Because A, there is a capacity problem, B, the existing what they have inherited is hugely problematic. But as I have been taught in my childhood and teenage, is that you can quarrel with your inheritance only in your adolescence. After that, you have to make do with it or build on it. So this government will have to come out of the election mode and get into the government mode. They're still in election mode because there have been elections, again there are elections. So I'm going to sort of wrap now and then I'll take questions so that we can get more specific. I think the insurance bill will be extremely lucky if it goes through this session. The GST will be a sort of modified halfway house or half full glass, half empty glass kind of thing, but it will move maybe sometime in 2016, earliest. There is a lot of movement in a couple of sectors. One is roads, ports, shipping, because there is a hyperactive minister there. And he's not waiting for anybody to sort of tell him yes, no, right, no. There's a lot of hope built on railways because Suresh Prabhu has taken over, so he's known as a reformist minister. We'll have to wait and see how that budget pans out. There is no doubt that, I was telling Anuradha yesterday, there's no doubt that if these problems this government is equipped with the political mandate to do the things that need to be done. And we hear this Prime Minister saying all the things that we want to hear. Now, the wide gap between expectation and execution is what concerns us all and worries us all. I think it's a now or never moment in many ways. We may not get all the stuff made in India or made for India or make in India, whatever that goes. But some moment will happen, there will be a transition. I think the coming budget will give us a sense of how serious this government is, how they will push stuff. What we must necessarily watch out for and accept is that the July budget could have been a much more pungent budget in the sense of telling the people the harsh truths about the economy. I think that opportunity was missed. Like all you people know, when there is a regime change in corporates, at least in banks, they rewrite the NPA numbers. So this government could have rewritten the story and said, this is where we are, this is where we need to get to, and these are the problems that... So that conversation has not yet happened. That conversation, I suspect, will need to happen if this coming budget has to make sense. I'm hopeful, but also one has to be reasonable in expectations. There's a lot that one can crib about and complain. But remember, at the end of the day, the central government is a conceptual myth. Every inch of this country is ruled by the states. So they have to take the states along, build those partnerships. And so the good thing there is that you can travel from Jammu and Kashmir till Karwar coast without encountering a Congress government. And you can travel from Kerala border to all the way up to Bangladesh without encountering a Congress government. So there's no opposition there, but there are some pockets of opposition which will work on their interests, and that is finally political management. I think a 6.5% growth or a little more than 6.5 next year is a real possibility, because there will be movement henceforth in this government, because there is clear recognition that hereafter they can't blame their parents and neighbors and siblings for what's happening, and they'll have to get their act together. I think the interest rate drop that we expect will come sometime probably in the second quarter of next year, not before that. If the commodity cycle, the food price cycle and the fuel cycle sustain, and if we don't create another Narega or something in the next budget. As far as the state governments, there is a window of opportunity here. There are no major elections. I mean, the two states that the BJP is interested in, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal, are still some way to go. So hopefully that political distraction, and there will be no love or hate jihad in the picture for some time. So that moment will happen. I think the final thing one must understand is Narendra Modi has got a huge opportunity, a historic opportunity. And he is a political animal, and he would know when the mandate is being squandered or not squandered. So I am happy to take questions so we can get more specific. Anuradha, how much time do you have?
No, I think what we'll do is I'm going to ask you to stay a little bit longer. We have a nice long tea break half an hour from now. So I'm going to ask people to keep their questions so that we can talk a little bit about it. But I do want to, just before I close, I'm reminded of an article you wrote some days ago saying that for 10 years we didn't have a government, now we don't have an opposition. And I don't sometimes know which is the worst thing to have. But I know that you live political economy, and therefore it's very easy for you to see the picture and the jigsaw and know which piece is bigger than the other. And I know that you said a little while ago that if we have a chance at fixing the problem, this is probably the best time, right? But in your assessment, are we at a stage where it's still a time for optimism? Is it a time for watching out for signals so that as corporate India we can keep the pressure up or build the pressure? Or do you already think there are signs for concern that things are not going to be as good as we might have thought 6 months ago?
So I think the point that the gentleman made there, that the constant pressure should be up for a sense of order. The UPA went down the tube because there was no order. So that constant pressure must be there. There is a sense of hope. We have a window here to make things right. This window will not be available for us for a very long time. See, once Janet Yellen moves the interest rates picture differently in mid-2015, we don't know what the currency scenario is going to be, what the outflow scenarios is going to be. This great story about the Sensex just now is really good while it lasts, but there used to be a British Airways ad about school children saying that they walk to school and run back home. So the same holds true for investors. So we have a very limited window in which to get things done, for the committees and commissions to deliver their report and get moving. I think one point of pressure that corporates and CFOs and all can bring upon the government is to say that we know what is the problem, we know what is the solution. Let's not appoint any more committees, commissions, and for deciding. let's put a deadline for outcomes. So the KRA should be written down in the budget, in the following budget. And one thing that you all could insist is that there should be an outcome budget. I mean, the last government, if you remember, had some 15 items, 100 crores, 200 crores, 2000 crores, all which I called the Shagun budget, and got a lot of grief for it. But what happened to all that? So there is need, if the government wants corporates to be accountable and good governance, the same is true for you as voters and citizens and stakeholders to ask the government, keep the pressure up. I think if you take the foot off the pressure now, it could be, they already had a sense of complacency in the first 6 months because they won 2 great elections last month, and then they won the majority in May. So they went a little off the track, thinking that they have all the time in the world for everything. But investors and economic growth are not governed by political cycles. They are governed by economic cycles, and this cycle is just there. You make it or you break it. And remember, we are adding 11 million people every year to the job market. You don't create jobs for them, you will pay like never before. So keep the pressure. There is a need for optimism, because hope is what keeps us alive.
I have to tell you that this is the most optimistic speech I have ever heard from Shankkar Aiyar. So there is something, there is something in it for us to take away. But the point he makes is actually something that, again, as CFO India and as things that we have been saying to corporate India, it is imperative that we don't become standby watchers. That you can criticize or you can clap, but you don't really engage every day for the government to know what will work for you. But also, we are actually embarking right now on setting up something called the CFO board, which is a group of 25 senior CFOs in this country who are going to do policy engagement on public policy with the government, because the CFO community has no voice. And I think it is high time that we started talking to the government with the wisdom and the knowledge that you have. So I think he makes the same point, that if you don't engage and if there is no dialogue, and Shankkar, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the big drawbacks of the current government is that it doesn't feel the need for dialogue.
Yeah, because basically the economy is split out now. Either you're a cheerleader or you're throwing stones. And we don't need both. I mean, if they do good, okay, fine, applaud. But there is no realistic assessment being done. I mean, most steps that the government takes, people say, yeah, it's a good, yeah. So, I mean, I always tell people, one day before the monetary policy, the credit policy, and one day after the credit policy is the newspaper to read, to know the real state of hypocrisy in India. First day they'll say, yes, it should be cut, interest must be go down, we will have to do this and all. And the day after the economic policy, where credit policy, where there is no interest rate cut, everybody says, yeah, but it is correct, it's taken a logical step, it's a very reasonable thing to do. I mean, you can't have 2 opinions in 48 hours. You've got to have 1 opinion, and please make that opinion count. Yeah. So that's the thing. I'm not saying necessarily about interest rate, but I'm saying that engagement needs to come, because you guys are the guys who are, so to say, making this timing case. I always see the economy in the sense of a watch timing case. Small gear moving big gear, and that's the thing. And you guys need to engage. You guys need to put the pressure on the government for accountability, for steps that need to be taken. And what's good is good. You got to say that. But what's not good also you should say.
Thank you.